Chapter 15, The World-Famous Watson Pet Hospital. Mom and Dad didn't know I was in the living room. We'd been back in Flint for a couple of weeks, and they were still talking about what had happened, but never around us. The only thing I knew for sure was that the bomb wasn't dropped on the church by an airplane. Grandma Sands called a couple of times and told them that the police thought two white men drove by in a car and threw it in during services, or that they'd already hidden it in the church with the clock set to go off during Sunday school. However it got in the church, it had killed 4 little girls, blinded a couple more, and sent a bunch of other people to the hospital. I couldn't stop wondering if those 2 little girls I saw on the lawn were okay. From my secret hiding place in the living room, I could listen to Mama and Dad, and it seemed like they spent most of the time trying to figure out how they could explain to us what happened. Some of the time they were mad, some of the time they were calm, and some of the time they just sat on the couch and cried. Even though none of us kids got hurt by the bomb, they acted like they were worried about us. They weren't too worried about Byron and weren't worried at all about Joey. We'd all agreed not to tell her what happened at that church and had left Birmingham that night before she had a chance to find anything out. I was kind of surprised because the way Mama and Dad were talking, I could tell they were most worried about me. They came out of the kitchen and sat on the couch. I knew they were talking about me again. Mama said, "He's been disappearing, Daniel. Hours go by and I don't know where he is." "What's he say when you ask him where he's been?" "He tells me he hasn't been anywhere. He says I shouldn't worry. It's so strange. I call him and he's nowhere to be found. But a few minutes later he just pops up." "Doesn't Byron know where he's going?" "He says he doesn't." "He is being awfully quiet." "Something's wrong. I wonder if Mr. Roberts' friend was right. I wonder if he really did see Kenny in that church afterward. Lord, who knows what that poor baby saw?" "Willona, he says he only left Grandma Sands to tell us Joey was okay. I don't know what we can do." "But Joey swears it was him she followed away from there. And you know that child would just as soon die as lie. I just wish I knew where he goes and why." I had been disappearing, but Mama really didn't need to worry. I wasn't going anywhere. I had just been going behind the couch for a little while every day. There was a big enough space between the couch and the wall for me to squeeze in back there and just sit in a little ball. It was quiet and dark and still back there. Byron called this little area the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital, and he made me and Joey believe that magic powers, genies, and angels lived back there. I was waiting to see if that was true. He started calling it the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital after we noticed that if something bad happened to one of our dogs or cats, they just automatically knew they had to crawl in that space and wait to see if they were going to get better. Since Mama and Dad had told us that animal doctors cost about $1,000 each time you went to them, our pets knew they wouldn't be seeing any veterinarians, and that the most help they could get was to crawl behind the couch and see if they could make a deal with the magic powers there. If one of our dogs got hit by a car and could walk away, or if one of them chewed through an electric wire, or ran away from home and showed up a couple of weeks later half-starved or something, they'd head right for the back of the couch. If one of our cats got beat up by a dog, or spent too much time throwing up disgusting pieces of things, or got thrown out of a tree or something, they'd zip right straight into the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital. Those times when one of our pets got hurt, I'd wake up the next morning and run out to the living room and climb up on the back of the couch and look over to see how it was doing. If I looked down there and the dog looked up at me with sad eyes and banged his tail a couple of times before he put his head back down, or if the cat looked up and hissed at me, I knew they'd made it through their first night, and that the magic powers were probably going to keep them alive. If, when I looked behind the couch, I just saw a crumpled up yellow towel where the dog or cat had been laying, I knew Mama would soon be telling us that Sooty or Fluffy or Scamp or Lady or whoever the patient was hadn't done too well and would be spending the rest of time running around happily in cat or dog heaven. But I knew better. I knew this was some made-up garbage. I knew the magic powers had decided not to keep the animal alive, and Dad had got rid of the body before we woke up. It was kind of strange, because whatever it was that was behind the couch seemed to work best on dogs. Whenever dogs survived the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital, they always came out a lot friendlier. When they came out, they might walk kind of funny, but it seemed like all they wanted to do was lick you and wobble around after you wherever you went. Blackie had been in the hospital twice, and he got along great with everyone now, even strangers, even cats. But cats were different. If one of them survived the hospital, it'd come out and give you a dirty look and be a lot meaner than it was before it went in. Most of the time, after a cat visited the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital, it wouldn't let anyone but Joetta touch it. But that was okay, because most of the time, nobody but Joetta wanted to touch those stupid cats anyway. I was waiting to see if the magic powers were going to treat me like a dog or a cat. Or if when Byron or Joey woke up one morning, they'd find a crumpled up yellow towel where I was supposed to be. The only trouble was that the magic powers seemed to be taking a real long time to decide what was going to happen to me. Maybe I wasn't spending enough time back there. Mama started trying to force me to do more things with Rufus, but it seemed like he changed while we were gone and wasn't as much fun to be with. Him and Cody got real happy when I gave them my pillowcase full of dinosaurs. I was getting too mature to play with toys anymore. Mama even forced Byron to take me with him and when he and Butthead played basketball. But you didn't have to be Albert Einstein to figure out that the only reason the big guys were playing with me was because Butthead had threatened them when my back was turned. But what really bugged me the most was when Mama tried to force me to do things with Joetta. I'd never noticed what a little crybaby and snitch she was. Every time you turned around, she was threatening to go tell on you, or was whining about something, or being just a plain old pest. After a while, to get even with her, I wouldn't even look at her. I started hating her guts. I only wanted to come out of the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital to eat and go to the bathroom. I even started going into it after Mama and Dad went to bed at night. I started sleeping there. I spent so much time there that Byron finally figured out where I was going. I looked up one day, and there were his eyeballs staring down at me. Hi, Bye. Hey, Kenny. So, this is where you been hanging out, huh? Are you going to tell on me? Man, when you ever known me to be a snitch? Never. You're right. He just kept looking at me. You want me to get you something to eat? Byron walked over and turned on the TV, then stuck his head back behind the couch. You want to watch some TV? His head disappeared, and he watched Batfink. When the show was over, his head came back. I'm going to play some ball. You want to come? I'll come in a minute. Bye looked like he didn't believe me. Cool. Later. Even though Byron had a reputation for not being a snitch, I got the feeling he told on me. When they sat on the couch, Mom and Dad quit talking like nobody was around and got real careful about what they said. They started saying stuff about how proud they were of me and what a nice kid I was and junk like that. But it sounded like they'd been practicing what to say. I turned my ears off when they came around. Mama also quit bugging me to find out where I was going. I knew they busted me for sure when Joetta's snitchety little face started peeking around the couch every morning. Byron even started sleeping on the couch at night. Right after Mom and Dad went to bed and I crawled back there, he'd come out with his pillow and blanket. Night, Kenny. Night, Bye. Every morning I'd wake up and Byron would be there, looking down at me. He'd wake me up by touching the top of my head. Hi, Kenny. Hi, Bye. You all ready to eat? Come on. I crawled out from behind the couch and let Byron pour out my cereal and milk. After I finished, I said, Thanks. Wait, ain't you gonna change out of them PJs? Oh, yeah. I changed and went back to the couch. Bye was sitting there. Hold on, Kenny. Watch some cartoons with me. Okay, I will in a minute. Byron grabbed my arm before I could crawl behind the couch. Nah, man. At least stay for Felix the cat. Okay. I sat next to him on the couch. When Felix was over, I thought Bye would force me to watch more cartoons, but he didn't. He let me crawl back behind the couch. Check you out later, Kenny. See ya, Bye. As much time as Byron started spending on the couch, I thought I was going to have to make room for a bed for him in the world-famous Watson Pet Hospital. Every time I'd look up, he'd be there. And we'd have to go eat or watch some TV or go to Mitchell's for something or change clothes or stuff like that. One day, his head popped over the back of the couch and he said, Come on, I got something to show you. I knew I had to go. If I wouldn't, he'd pull me out by my legs. I followed Byron upstairs into the bathroom and he stood in front of the sink and looked in the mirror. He scrunched his face up so he could see the bottom of his chin. Then he took his thumb and finger and felt around there. He smiled and real slow pulled the thumb and finger away. Check this out, Jack. I looked real close, and there was a long, skinny black hair growing out of Byron's chin. He held it like it was worth $1 million. And there's another one coming out, too. This made me wonder about my mustache. I hadn't looked at it for a long time, and I thought it might be pretty long by now. I climbed on the toilet and leaned over the sink to see. Maybe it was because I hadn't looked in the mirror for a long time. But as soon as I saw myself with my lazy eye still being lazy, and my face looking so sad, I slammed my eyes shut and started crying. I even fell off the toilet. Byron caught me and set me on the floor. He knew this was some real embarrassing stuff, so he closed the bathroom door and sat on the tub and waited for me to stop. But I couldn't. I felt like someone had pulled a plug on me, and every tear inside was rushing out. If there was a forest fire somewhere, all Smokey the Bear would have to do was hold me upside down over it, and the fire wouldn't have a chance. Byron sat next to me on the floor and put my head in his lap. I still couldn't stop, even though I was soaking him worse than Joey ever drooled on anybody. It was real embarrassing. I'm sorry, Bye. Shut up and cry if you want. That sounded like a real good idea. So I did. I think I cried for about 200 hours. Why would they do that, Byron? I was sounding real bad. My throat was jumping around in my neck and making a bunch of weird noises. Why would they hurt some little kids like that? He waited a long time before he answered. I don't know, Kenny. Mom and Dad say they can't help themselves. They did it because they're sick, but I don't know. I ain't never heard of no sickness that makes you kill little girls just because you don't want them in your school.